Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to another edition to the Point Podcast. Hope you guys are all doing well. Thursday, already almost done the week here, and a lot of stuff happening in the world of sports, including some great tennis action last night from down under. The Toronto Maple Leafs getting back in the win column after their collapse Monday night. The Vancouver Canucks and Calgary Flames both playing hockey and then playing so inconsistent hockey. It's really hard to watch on either side. Edmonton winning last night, and then obviously some NBA action as well. And tonight we're gonna go through it all. Also tee up the Genesis Invitational at Riviera this weekend, starting today on the PGA Tour. The likes of Dustin Johnson, Colin Morikawa, Justin Thomas. Like 9 of the top 10 best players in the world are at this event, and it should be a great tournament, a loaded field, and likely a top 10. A huge name going to win the tournament if I had to put money on it. But I'll start the day talking about the women's match last night, one of the first semifinal, and that was Naomi Osaka against Serena Williams. And they hadn't met since 2018 when Osaka beat Serena in the U.S. Open final. It was this match that was kind of highly contested because, Serena was getting it with the chair ump, and some people really didn't like the way she handled it. She was a bit confrontational and took away from Osaka ultimately winning the tournament. But, the two share similarities in that they're both winners. Osaka's won 3 majors in the last year and a half. Serena's obviously a 23-time major champion, the greatest of all time. And going into last night, I think it was the biggest match of the tournament. Men, male or female. We've seen some big upsets. Obviously, Rafael Nadal losing in the quarterfinal to Stefanos Tsitsipas after leading by 2 sets was a major upset and a shocker for sure. But these two, for me right now, they're the 2 biggest names in women's tennis. Around Canada, you might say Bianca Andreescu. To me, she can't be in that conversation because she's only won 1 major. She's not consistent enough. She's not in the court, and it just doesn't work. Osaka wins the big events. Then you have Serena, the larger-than-life figure, the icon, against the up-and-coming Osaka, who looks like she's going to be the face of women's tennis for the next, 5 to whatever years. In tennis, for you to have a run where you can control it for a long time, it happens. But the Serenas of the world, the Roger Federer, Novak Djokovic, Rafael Nadal 3-pack, it doesn't happen every day. And I think Osaka does have an opportunity right now to grab it and kind of run with it. But going into last night, it was the most highly it only started at 11 o'clock last night. So if you didn't watch it, I get it. I stayed up to watch it. I had to. These two, it's just too good of a match. And, ultimately, Osaka just was more consistent than Serena last night. She less unforced errors. She brought it to her early. Serena struggled with her serve with some double faults. And ultimately, I think Osaka was just in better physical condition than Serena was. I don't think Serena's out of shape by any means, but Osaka at her age, Serena's 39. Osaka can just get around the court better. She's a great shot maker when, she's on the run. She can hit the passing shot down the line. It's just Naomi's playing at a very high level right now. She didn't play at the French Open. Last tournament she played in was the U.S. Open. She won it, if you remember. So she's riding high right now. She's won 13 matches consecutively here in majors, which is highly impressive. But she beat Serena Williams for the 2nd straight time, and it's obviously a huge win. They share a hug after the match. I think the mutual respect is clearly there. A lot of people don't like Serena because she's a little bit brash. I think Serena Williams takes unnecessary heat. I really don't understand why. I think the American media loves her. Fans just reading online really don't like Serena Williams, and I don't understand this. And I get on this with people in my family about it. Serena Williams is one of the best athletes in the history of professional sports, male or female. I think you could make a very compelling argument that she's the best athlete in the history of sports. Better than Jordan, better than Brady, but you name it. she's dominated a sport like nobody has. Tom Brady's won 7 championships. She's won 23 Grand Slams, and Tom Brady went 8 years without winning a Super Bowl. Serena Williams did not go 8 years without winning a Grand Slam. She was winning them, just chewing them out against whoever you put up against her. And I don't get why there's this the media. I agree. The ESPN media really they love Serena Williams. They kiss up to her. She's, the best thing since sliced bread, whatever. I don't think she's the greatest person ever, but that's not my expertise. I'm just an average Joe here. But for fans to actively root against her, again, I don't root for anybody to win, but most people aren't me. Most people are fans. I don't understand why people have this huge problem with Serena Williams. She's a strong, powerful woman. And I think for men and women, but I'm talking about in my experience with women, they really don't take to her as a strong force. I just don't understand it. This is a big loss. It's a tough loss for her. She cried in her post-game press conference. And clearly this loss took a lot out of her. This might be farewell in Australia. It could be her last year. I mean, she's 39 years old. We're in a pandemic year. Who knows when fans are going to be back? It could be it for Serena down here. She gets to a semifinal, a great run, beats Simona Halep, the world number 2, to get here. But Osaka's just better than her right now. And do I think Serena could win another major? Yes, I can. Because in women's tennis, even men's tennis in the last 2-3 years, every major, there are upsets. Because Naomi Osaka is playing Jennifer Brady for the Aussie Open title. Jennifer Brady's in her first career Grand Slam. She's either going to play Jennifer Brady or Karolina Muskova, who would have been in her first Grand Slam final. It's always this. We see it 3 years ago at the French Open. Yelena Ostapenko. She was 17 years old. She won. She's never been to a quarterfinal since. But it happens where Victoria Azarenka played Osaka in the U.S. Open final. She was ranked 190th in the world a year and a half ago. It's this constant shift, and you see these women just propel up the ranks. Today, Novak Djokovic beat Aslan Karatsev. He made a semifinal. He's unranked. It happens. Rafael Nadal lost today. The only constant in tennis is that Nadal is going to win the French Open. You know that. Other than that, it's a crapshoot because you never know what's going to happen. Novak Djokovic might get himself tossed out of a tournament for hitting a ball boy, whatever. Shit happens in life and in sports. And so I don't think that Serena hasn't won since 2017. This says more. Like, I don't see her in the same category as Roger Federer. Roger Federer should hang them up. He's done. He's not going to win another one. Again, if I'm wrong, I'll eat crow here, but I don't see Roger Federer winning another major. With the men's tennis that's out there right now, with Djokovic and Nadal are younger and better than him. But for Serena, you never know, but I see it as a passing of the torch in a small sense. I don't think Osaka can take the torch yet, but if she beats Brady, that'll be Saturday morning at about 4 a.m. It'll be her 4th Grand Slam title. So in 2 down under 2 at the U.S. Open, for her to really take that next step into, a great player, a legend, she has to win in Roland Garros at the French Open and win at Wimbledon. For me, all-time great tennis players, you have to win everywhere. You have to be an all-slam champion. And Serena Williams has done that. Roger Federer, I mentioned Nadal. Nadal's won twice on grass, which is Federer's best surface. So that just tells you something there. You need to win everywhere. And for Osaka, I think this would be a big step. She's beaten Serena here. To beat Serena to get to the final, it would be impressive. But it's It's tough for Serena Williams. Obviously, 6'3", 6'4" defeat. It really wasn't that close of a match for me. At points, it was, but I never worried about Osaka losing the match after that first set. I said, she's cruising here. She started the second set holding serve quite easily. And I said, it's just Naomi's day. She's a better player than Serena right now. But, I don't rule out, the French Open's in June. I don't rule out Serena Williams putting up a good fight there and possibly winning it. I'll never say she's done. Like I said, just the women's tennis game right now is different. But as she's winding down her career, just bringing it back to the point about just fans and appreciating what you have, she's changed women's tennis. She's put it on the map. Steffi Graf was great and Chrissy Everett was great, but was women's tennis as popular as it is right now? No, it wasn't. What she's done with Nike, what she's done for women's sports is admirable to say the least. I think she's changed the category and how you look at women in sports. And for Serena, I just think she deserves a little bit more credit. The media, whatever, as you guys know, if you listen to this podcast, I'm not a big fan of media anywhere. It could be hockey, it could be sports, it could be politics, it could be anything. I take it with a grain of salt. But I just think appreciate what you have right now and maybe don't pick out all her faults because we all have faults, but she's done so much for the sport that I think is really admirable. But good for Naomi Osaka. Like I said, she's closing in on her fourth Grand Slam. She can beat Jennifer Brady. Brady is an American. She's beat some good talent to get here. She beat Muskova. She beat Jessica Pegula, a fellow American. So she's be looking for her first Grand Slam title. But Osaka will clearly be the heavy favorite coming into that match, and that'll be Saturday morning at about 4:30. That might be Friday. Yeah, Saturday morning at about 4:30. It's tough to figure out the schedule for Australia because it's a day ahead, right? Basically, so you gotta. Yeah, the finals will start about 4 a.m. both Saturday and Sunday for the men's and women's titles, singles titles. Also, last night I mentioned Djokovic moved on to he won his semifinal in straight sets, clean win, 6-4, 6-3, 6-2. He's seeking his 9th Aussie Open title, and he'll meet the winner of Daniil Medvedev and Stefanos Tsitsipas, and they'll play this tomorrow morning at 4:30. Medvedev is the favorite. He's been to a Grand Slam final, U.S. Open final 2 years ago, losing to Nadal. Tsitsipas has never been to a Grand Slam final. Big opportunity for both guys, but obviously, if it's a long match and it's grueling, it would help Djokovic, and probably this is his best surface. It'd be his 9th title here. I mean, that's pretty incredible what he's done at the Aussie Open, but I think the tournament's been good so far. Again, this tournament can be tough to track if you're working a lot and things like that. But yeah, there's still some good tennis left to come. A couple of matches here before it's all getting shut down. But tennis is in a good spot right now. I think we got the likes of Serena Williams, the Federers, the Nadals, Djokovic just hanging around, but the up and coming talent, the Andrei Rublev, the Medvedevs, the Naomi Osakas, the Carolina Pliskavas, the Simona Haleps, and the women's game, I think will make for some good tennis down the line here, and the Coco Gauffs. Tennis is in a good spot, and I think when you losing Serena Williams, I think will hurt the sport more than anything, and hopefully the women's tennis can still stay as popular as it is now, because I think it's at a pretty high peak right now when it comes to popularity. So yeah, I'll keep you guys updated on results. Like I said, the second men's semifinal will be early tomorrow morning, and I'll update you guys tomorrow on the outcome and on where this is going. Moving to the NHL. Yeah. Toronto Maple Leafs fans are, Oh, they're special people. I've never seen people overreact to both wins and losses. And, you know, beating Montreal that one time 2 weeks ago on that Wednesday night, it was as if you plan the parade. I had a podcast, and the thumbnail was Toronto planning the parade, and it was the biggest win ever. And then, but then Montreal plays them Saturday, and Montreal wins. But that's okay. Well, Toronto's been playing really well lately, so they're due for a loss. Oh, okay. So that's how it goes. But I'm fine with that. That's a good answer. You're due for they were playing. I'm fine with that answer from the fans. But Monday night, they're playing Ottawa, playing great. Matthews is scoring goals at a record clip. Team looks good. Frederik Andersen's been playing, pretty decent so far this year. I don't think he's been great by any means, but he's playing a lot of hockey, which is also a problem. But they're great. They're 5-1 against Ottawa. And Ottawa had 3 wins prior to that game, so they're not very tough competition. That's not me saying something that you don't already know. But then you go into a third period, and for me, Toronto, it could be Monday night, it could be last night. It's called situational awareness, and I think they lack it. And that game Monday night, they're up 5-1. They start the period on the power play. How do you not know how much time's left on the penalty? That's on coaching, but it's also on players. If you played hockey at any kind of level, look at the effing clock. Know what's coming. Know what you're up against. And for Artem Zub, just come out of the box, some defenseman who hadn't scored an NHL goal, and get a breakaway? Come on. Like, Riley, bro, do something. You need to know what's happening. And, what was bashed later was the Tavares turnover later in the game, which was terrible. But the people that just defend Morgan Riley and he's a number one defenseman, he isn't, and that's fine. But for him, you're the leader of the D-corps. You're the best defenseman on the team. At least you should be. How do you not pick that up? It needs to happen. It needs to happen. Bad teams can at least know situational awareness. Detroit can say, okay, we got a penalty. They're coming out of the box in 14 seconds. Let's have a guy cover. You can do that. You can still be a crap team, but at least you're aware of what's happening around you. Toronto wasn't. And what worried me about that game and the loss Monday night, the collapse, it was meaningless in the big picture. And I mean that. They lose the game to Ottawa. Frederik Andersen let in a few stinkers that he'd want back, I'm sure. Again, the John Tavares turnover, horrible. And Dadonov scored. They almost scored. Riley almost scored in overtime. They were seconds away from winning that game, but they didn't. And they choke it up and gag it up like only, the Toronto Maple Leafs know how to do. But it's more about the big picture. It's not about Monday night. I thought last night's response, so to speak, which I don't think they really needed a response to a loss. They lose one game and it was in overtime to get a point. So good on you. It wasn't great last night. If you watch that game, I didn't think Toronto played very well at all. I didn't think Ottawa played that great either. The game was a bit of a stinker, but they turned the puck over frequently. They're getting opportunities, but the big picture concern for me is that Matthews is going to score goals all year. He's got 14, good on you. But who else is going to score? I mean, Alex Kerfoot scored last night. Good for Alex Kerfoot. He's about as useful to me as like a lion. If I'm in my apartment and there's a lion without a cage, I'm done. So if I have Kerfoot in front of the net, it's an empty net. I don't have a lot of faith he's going to make it. He doesn't. Good. He scored a goal last night because it went off a shin pad and a goalie's head and then the post. And good on you, Alex Kerfoot. But anyway, I don't need to bury him, but he doesn't do anything for me. John Tavares and Bill Nylander. Those are my big two right now. John Tavares has not scored a 5-on-5 goal all year. That's a problem. And to me, for the past 2 years, he looks a step behind of the play. He's always just a step behind. I'm not saying he's down and he's not a good player anymore. No, I'm not saying he's just a step behind. For Bill Nylander, get to the front of the net. You did it last year. That's where you score goals. On the goalies are too good now and they're too big because it'll just hit their arm or something. Shooting from the corners, hoping to pick a corner, you're not going to score. Point blank. And I need to see a more consistent effort from that line because they don't give you anything. Matthews, Marner, great. You're gonna get your cookies. You're gonna get your points. Good on you. The media can try to win you both awards this year, which this will be fantastic fodder, whatever. But when it comes to the playoffs, one line's not going to win you a cup. And Wayne Simmons coming back will certainly help, for sure. But the past 3 years, Wayne Simmons wasn't what he was in Toronto. We got to remember that. Was his play great or was it an anomaly? I don't think we've seen a big enough sample size to prove that yet. Joe Thornton's 41. He's feeling good because he's playing with the kids. He should be playing with them. Zach Hyman still should be playing with them, but that's another story. But he's great right now. But he played 19 minutes last night. You're gonna expect Joe Thornton to play 19 minutes a game in the playoffs? He won't have any fucking legs left. My biggest, that second line on paper, it should be fantastic. And Sheldon Keefe probably won't break up Marner and Matthews because he loves them together. And I don't blame him. They're great together. But if Tavares isn't going and Nylander don't get going in the next week plus, you got to think about putting Marner with Tavares, at least for a little bit, to get some confidence, to see a puck go in the back of the net, score a 5-on-5 goal. Jesus. That's the thing. Just 5-on-5 goal would be really nice. And for this team. And it's just their lack of scoring from other than the top line would really concern me. And I don't know what the solution right now. The solution for them is just, Matthews continue to score. Well, eventually he's going to go through lulls. And in the playoffs, when the game's tighter, when you're not playing, the biggest break for Toronto is you're playing in the Canadian division, which let's just be frank here. It's been dog shit so far this year. If you're watching these games, it's terrible. Like Calgary, Vancouver. I watched some of that game last. It was hard to watch. Then you got Edmonton, who in Winnipeg. Winnipeg, I thought would be way better than they are right now. They're not. Dubois is now hurt. He's on IR. So other than Toronto, Montreal, that's it. That's who you got in the division. Your biggest break is that you get to play against these little baby opponents. So far, maybe they'll get better as the year goes on. They're not right now. But even so, you're not going to win a whole bunch of games with what you have there. I think adding a third line center is a desperate need. Again, I'm going to bury Alex Kerfoot in this podcast because I just don't think he brings anything to the table. Like he's too small. I think he's too weak, and he's not a checking center in the playoffs. You kidding me? Okay, you put him on a checking line against Phil Deneau. He's going to get his ass run over. Put him against Jacob Evans on Montreal as the fourth line center. He'll murder him. You need to upgrade that. But for Toronto fans, just breathe. Just breathe, The overreaction to a loss, I mean, it's almost laughable. And the media too. You lost to Ottawa. You beat Ottawa last night. I'm not going to applaud you for either. Way to go. You beat Ottawa. You should beat Ottawa. When you beat a team you should beat, I'm not giving you credit. That's just me. When you got to go to work, you go to work. Does your boss say, "Hey, thanks for coming"? No, he says, "Get your ass in the desk and let's get going here." It's the same thing. They punched their clock against the Senators the past 2 nights. They played them again tonight. That should be a riveting game tonight. I can't wait to see that one. But again, I just for all the Leafs fans, and I know there's a lot of you, and a lot of you are suffering, and maybe you have a little bit of PTSD because you're just used to failure. The David Ayers game in recent memory, the 2013 with the Bruins. I'm sure you could name more, but just breathe. You lost Ottawa. You beat Ottawa last night. They're both irrelevant. It's mid-February. If you lose a game in April, May, and it's a playoff game, then I'll have a different outlook on this. But yeah, it's for right now. It's no big deal. But we'll see where this goes for Toronto. They get Montreal again Saturday night. Montreal is not playing all week, so they'll play last Saturday. Their next game will be Saturday, so they'll be rested. But also, I'd rather be Toronto playing games this week than coming in cold and having to play, a good Toronto team. So, but yeah, the top two teams. Actually, Edmonton jumped Montreal last night for the second seed in the division, but they played three more games than them, and they only lead them by a point. So, but good on Toronto to bounce back last night. I didn't think it was the prettiest game. And, they play again back-to-back tonight, and they might start Freddie Anderson again. It would be his 11th straight start. To me, you got to go with Hutchinson. I get it. You might have zero faith in the guy, and I understand that. But what if you lose tonight, what does it really do to you? Not much, because you're probably going to win the division anyway. If you have that much, if you're Sheldon Keefe and you got Austin Matthews, you got all these great players, what's one loss? You're going to go beat Edmonton next week, Vancouver. You're going to beat these other sad sack teams in a couple weeks anyway. You should beat Ottawa with Michael Hutchinson. I should make that clear right now. That should be the expectation for if he starts tonight for Toronto fans. If you don't win tonight, that's a disappointment for sure. Because if you're this great defensive team, like they're saying they are, it should be no problem defending Ottawa. They don't get many high quality opportunities. So protect the house. This would be a really good test for Toronto. I think if Hutchinson started, that would make the game more compelling to me, because then I might actually watch it other than, watching these other better games tonight, like Islanders Pitt tonight. You got Washington going tonight. You got some Islanders. Yeah, the Islanders Pitt game for me is the one to watch. But if that happens, I'll have it in the rotation when it comes to flicking around. But we'll see. Hutchinson with Riley and Brody in the defense and the forwards having to defend a little more, seeing how they play a playoff style game, that's compelling to me. So hopefully that's the matchup we get tonight with Hutchinson, probably against Hogberg, who's been, couldn't have been worse so far this year for Ottawa. So we'll see what happens. I mentioned Vancouver, Calgary. They played last night in the late game, and both teams don't know what to do with themselves. Vancouver should have won Monday night. They throw up all over themselves, give the game away with just stupid penalties, lack of work ethic from Jake Virtanen, which has been basically the calling card of his career. We see stupid penalties, stupid decisions, bad goaltending. And then Calgary. Calgary should have lost 3 out of the 4 to Vancouver. They get 2 out of the 4 because of Jacob Markstrom. Last night, he let in 5, but was not his fault. He played well last night, and Calgary just doesn't bring it night in, night out. And I got to be consistent. My favorite player in the NHL is Matthew Tkachuk. He hasn't been the same player as he's been the past couple of years. We don't see that edge. We don't see that bite. I think last night watching the Toronto game, Tkachuk he came up on your screen. If you're watching that game, you're like, oh, well, okay, who jumped out of the screen at me? Who was involved in the game? Brady Tkachuk was in the game. He scored a goal, but that's beside the point. He was on your screen. He was noticeable. A lot of games for Calgary, Matthew Tkachuk just isn't. And I don't know what's going on with him. Usually he can bring guys into the fight, so to speak, where if there's no energy in the building, which there isn't because there's no fans, if the team's a little tired, whatever it may be, he can bring that fight, that dog. He's got that dog in him and make it a game where everybody's motivated and you see what happens. I haven't seen that from Tkachuk most of the year. And for Calgary, defending, just giving up so many opportunities. The forwards, it's been tough. And for Markstrom, he's been under siege all year. I think he's been one of the best goalies in the NHL. I mean, he'd never win a Vezina because he's playing a team that's too inconsistent. But the way he's kept teams in games, and Saturday night after the Toronto-Montreal game, Vancouver should have won that one, what they did last night, 5-1. But they only won 2-1 because Markstrom was so unreal. But for, again, Vancouver, they're so inconsistent. Well, they're so consistent at being inconsistent when it comes to just taking stupid penalties, having guys in their lineup that don't work. Like Travis Green, I think, is a great coach, and they signed Jake Virtanen. I feel like they have to play him because they let Markstrom go, basically because of Virtanen. They gave him 2.5 a year that could have went to Markstrom. Virtanen he's a guy that's overstayed his welcome in Vancouver. I don't have a lot of faith he's going to have a consistent effort wherever he goes. I could see him being an Alex Galchenyuk in a couple of years where he's bounced around to team after team because his work ethic is honestly most nights pretty pathetic. His defensive play, we saw him how he had the puck on the boards. He basically just gave Lucic the puck. I get it, Lucic's a big, strong guy, but Virtanen should be able to get that puck out of the zone just by skating. Lucic is a dinosaur when it comes to skating. He turns the puck over at the blue line, turns into a goal. And it's got to be so frustrating if I'm Travis Green saying, okay, Jimmy Benning, you kept this guy, but he's such a lazy fuck. He doesn't do anything for me. And again, I don't see it from him. But for both these teams, Vancouver, Calgary, I don't have faith. I don't have faith either of them is going to be a playoff team. Before the season started, I predicted they both wouldn't be, and I haven't been convinced otherwise. I like Winnipeg more than those two teams. I picked Edmonton to get the last spot in the North, which I also don't have a whole lot of faith in, but they've been playing better hockey lately, including a win over Winnipeg last night. But yeah, it's a frustrating one for these two teams where they just can't find consistency. And yeah, obviously they got to hope to find it soon, or they're going to be in big, big trouble down the road here because Vancouver's already played a ton of hockey. Calgary, you can have games in hand, but if you don't win them, then games in hand's irrelevant. That games in hand thing, it's only valuable if you take advantage of it. But we'll see what happens. Pivoting to the East Division, to start the year, the New York Islanders were really a mess. They were right there with the Rangers when it comes to disappointing teams. They didn't have game. They didn't really have a lot of jam. They weren't winning anything. Goaltending was spotty. But they've won 4 in a row. That includes winning over Pittsburgh. They beat Boston Saturday night in regulation, and they've beaten Buffalo twice this week. They found their game. Good defensive play, scoring from everybody, including the likes of, you got Barzal, you got Anders Lee contributing, Eberle. They got a team full of guys that are just workers that are going to, not superstars, but just a good workman-like team. And that's what you got to appreciate in Long Island. And they play Pittsburgh again tonight. But I like what the Islanders bring to the table. I predicted them to just miss the playoffs. I think this game's huge for both teams, obviously. Pittsburgh is a team that I've been saying for weeks, they're kind of in that middle ground when it comes to, are you a contender? Are you a pretender? I think they're they could jump into quicksand or they could go all in. Who knows? But the Islanders, they look good. I think this, like I said, it's a big game for both teams, but for the Islanders, you've won 4 in a row. Keep that momentum going. You beat Pittsburgh last week to start this thing. Keep it going against them. Obviously, Crosby's getting close to a 1,000-point plateau. I'm sure he'd love to get it tonight. Have a big night he's had some big nights in the past against the Islanders. If you remember, when he first came back from his concussion, he had a 5-point night against the Islanders, including a hat trick way back when. So he likes playing the Islanders, but for the Islanders, just play your game. You've beaten Pittsburgh tons of time in the past, like, and including last week. And it's a division where you're going to need a lot of wins to get through it. And to win it tonight in regulation would do huge things for both teams, because the Islanders would continue to move up the standings, and it would keep Pittsburgh from gaining points. So down the road, I think this division will be the closest one, because you got Washington, who got a win against Pittsburgh Tuesday night. That was a big win for them after losing 4 in a row in regulation. You got Boston, who just suffered a loss, second regulation loss on Saturday. They play New Jersey tonight. You got Philadelphia, who's been out for a long time with COVID. They'll be back on the ice tonight where they play the Rangers. So I think this division is going to come down to the wire, and a lot of teams are going to be really close in the standings, and it'll just depend on how you do it, how you fare against these teams. But yeah, that's kind of what's happening in the East Division. Before we move to the NBA, I thought I'd talk about the Central a little bit, and probably the most surprising and the most dominant team to start the year, the Florida Panthers. They are 10-2-2 quietly. They're first in the Central, above Tampa Bay. Huge night last night from Jonathan Huberdeau, 2 goals, 1 assist, including the overtime winner. For them, they've been doing it really with Chris Driedger in net. Bobrovsky's had some injury problems. He's been inconsistent, and Driedger's really took in the net and run with it for them. But, they have a team that's full of misfit characters. I said this last week, but Barkov's been playing fantastic hockey. Huberdeau is still playing at a great level. They got this kid Luukkonen who's looks like a player, and he works really hard. I mentioned Carter Verhaeghe, Hornquist. Ekblad's improved this year. He's played better. They don't have a team that's full of stars, but they play as a team. They play good defensively. And when they need to, they do have game breakers. I mean, Huberdeau in that overtime, he just basically said, "This is my show. I'm going to end this game," and he did. He gets the winner against Carolina last night. I know the guy's name. I can't even pronounce this. Neglovich or something for Carolina, but it's for 10-2-2. You played 14 games. That speaks for itself. Yes, there's still a lot of games left. Don't get me wrong, but to start off this well is really impressive for me. Dealing with COVID, cancellation games, everything. Florida's done a great job at being a good team, being consistent, and having scoring from all areas. The bottom of their lineup, Huberdeau and Barkov, like I mentioned. Their decor chip in. Keith Yandel is a guy who can bring offense. Ekblad scored a goal the other night. So for Florida, just a round of applause for them for just playing. This division's been ravaged with COVID, with cancellations. The big storm in Dallas right now, Dallas, Texas. So the Stars aren't playing, so neither's Tampa Bay. So there's been a lot of roadblocks for these teams to play games and to be consistent, practice regularly, be ready, be in game shape. But we've seen that from Florida. They have it in them where they might come into a game, they might bring it to overtime, but they're going to find a way to win that game. Find a way to get the 2 points. And it's an admirable thing for them. In this division, it's really wide open. I think Tampa's a lock to make the playoffs. I think Carolina will make the playoffs. But we've seen, Columbus has had a really tough start to the year. They're not a great team. Chicago has played fantastic so far this year. They're a team that just fights to get another win last night against the Red Wings, 2-0. But, we've seen guys like Nicolas Baudin, Philip Kurashev, these young rookies come in, make an impact. Patrick Kane clearly playing great too. And who knows? I think Chicago, it's going to be tough for them to play great all year. But they still have that winning nucleus. If Jonathan Toews could come back, who knows? Maybe they can push for a playoff spot. Dallas has played so few games, but they've been really inconsistent too. Hudobin's had to miss time, so Jake Ottinger's had to come in. They're still dealing with injuries from the Stanley Cup final win. And who Florida could get one of those spots. I think, Tampa winning this division to me is a lock, but that second spot is wide open. I think Carolina's a great team, but Florida beat them last night. So, go figure. And I don't think Florida's as scared of any other team. I don't think they're scared of Tampa, and they've beaten them twice already this year, including a beatdown one time. So they may just say, well, why not? We're going to go for broke. We got Joe Quenneville. Hopefully Bobrovsky can come back, play consistently, and just play in general. Chris Driedger has been an excellent backup, but you don't want Driedger to be in that starter's net come playoff time. But with this Central, it's completely wide open. And I thought that would happen before the year. I think a lot of people thought this would be the Canadian division, where it just isn't. But credit to teams like Chicago for staying in the fight and putting up a good war to see if they can make the playoffs in this division and make an impact. Yeah, a lot of hockey stories again tonight. We got some good, Phillies returning to the ice. They'll play the Rangers. We got Pittsburgh and Long Island. This weekend, we're going to have 2 outdoor games as of right now. Saturday afternoon at 4 o'clock, we'll see Colorado play Vegas. And then on Sunday, we'll see Philly play Boston. Both these games are scheduled to be at Lake Tahoe. So both outdoor games in the afternoon. The outdoor games kind of hit or miss for me. I think they do it too often now, the NHL, but it might be refreshing just to see it in the afternoon and see what happens. But just Austin Matthews, credit to him. He's got 14 goals already this year. Brock Besser is second to him with 12. But Matthews looks like a different player. And I'll talk about awards on another podcast. I read last night that, Jumbo thinks Austin should be nominated for everything. I have an opinion on that, and it's not Joe's. But yeah, I'll get that maybe tomorrow. I'll bring that up and talk about awards and kind of who I see winning them at this point. But yeah, a lot happening in the NHL. Full slate of games tonight, and then into a busy weekend. So I'll be back tomorrow to talk about the NHL and what happens there. The NBA. The NBA has kind of been tough to get through. So there's been a lot of cancellations. There's a lot of blowouts. Games just haven't been that close. And the Toronto Raptors had a tough start to their season. They started 2-8. They're chasing it from the beginning, and they sort of found their game. They've beaten some teams they should beat. They beat up on the Charlottes of the world. They beat Orlando twice in there. They've beaten the Detroit Pistons. They've beaten some bad teams, but they've climbed their way back into a playoff spot. They're coming to the game ranked 7th last night or on Tuesday night, and they're playing the Milwaukee Bucks. Obviously, Milwaukee's finished first in the East the past 2 years, so they go head to head. And even after Kyle Lowry leaves with an injury, the Raptors defeat the Bucks, and it's a big win. Milwaukee's been really consistent. The Greek Freak, coming off 2 straight MVP seasons, hasn't looked that great to me early this year. They've been missing Drew Holiday when it comes to injured. He's been injured. But the Raptors, they play hard. That's the best thing you can say about them. And you got a guy like Fred VanVleet, who was undrafted, who was a huge part of them winning the championship, gets a big contract this past offseason. He's validated it. I mean, his scoring close to 40 last night, scoring 54 two weeks ago against Orlando. He's just a baller, and he gets that ball in his hand. He's not afraid to shoot the 3. He can bring it to the hole. Siakam has played better as of late. OG Anunoby's been out hurt for a long time. But this Raptors team still has that championship fervor in it, and it fights. That's the best thing you can say about it, is that it's gonna fight every night. The Raptors don't get blown out often, and I think it's part about Nick Nurse's identity as a coach, saying, maybe Brooklyn's better than us, but we're gonna hang around the fight tonight. We're gonna make this a game for them and things like that. But a big one, like I said, they're in the 7th spot, just ahead of Charlotte. They got Chicago below them, kind of creeping in there. But I like the Raptors' chances of making the playoffs. I thought they would finish around this spot when the season started, so this checks out for me. But they do have an opportunity to rise up. And I say that because, Milwaukee's been really inconsistent. Again, they play Milwaukee tonight. That would be big. Move up the standings. Milwaukee loses, you get a win. The Boston Celtics have been really inconsistent. They lose to Atlanta last night. Again, they've had some COVID problems with Jason Tatum. Just has come back, hasn't looked like the same player. I look at like Indiana, I think can trail off. There's just teams there that they could rise, maybe get a fourth, fifth seed, which I didn't think would happen before the year. But you never know. I think they could. If you ask me, are they going to rise in the standings or drop? I would say they're going to rise just because of the competition around them. Some of the quote unquote better teams not being so good, and just having that championship DNA, that fight that Nick Nurse loves to have in his players. But yeah, good win for the Raptors. Again, they're playing Milwaukee again tonight, so a back-to-back, or sorry, a home and home against Milwaukee. But yeah, good effort from the Raptors lately to get back into a playoff spot after a really tough start and to show what you got, so to speak. But the real headline in the NBA has been the Utah Jazz. The Utah Jazz have won 20 of their last 21 games. They lost the winning streak at about 13, then they get back on one. They're just so impressive. They come at you in waves, and they got a really deep team with Donovan Mitchell, who a superstar-esque. He's a really good player. You got Rudy Gobert, who's one of the best center and one of the best defensive players in the NBA. You got Bogdanovich who can shoot. You got O'Neal who can shoot. They just got a team. Mike Conley. They just have a team. Jordan. They just got a team that you got to be reckoned with. I mean, it's just to point out a fact. The other night, they had 40-point game from Jordan Clarkson, and he's a bench player, and they won the game. But he only played 29 minutes, 40 points. I mean, that's a luxury off the bench that a lot of teams don't have, and they do. I think they can push the Lakers. They haven't shown themselves in the playoffs yet, and that's where the proof meets the pudding. But they beat the Clippers last night, albeit underhanded. But 20 out of 21 wins is impressive, and I like what Utah has to offer. I think they're one of the biggest weaknesses for the Lakers is their center position. They got Marc Gasol, who's he's long in the tooth. He just is. He was great in Toronto, what he could add, but right now he just doesn't bring anything to the Lakers. He's not big enough to he's not athletic enough to defend. He's too slow. He's not shooting the ball well. They need an upgrade for me to really be a threat. Maybe Andre Drummond's that guy. They're gonna have to move some money in, money out, which will be tough. But he's a guy that rebounds. That would really help that team take some of that burden off of LeBron to rebound. But I think they could battle with the Lakers. Again, the Lakers are without Anthony Davis right now. He's supposed to be out 2 to 3 weeks. You got to worry about his injury history. He's been banged up a lot ever since coming out of Kentucky. He was always hurt. So I think they got to be cautious with this approach. I mean, obviously Anthony Davis is their second best player. You don't want to rush him back. You don't want him getting injured right before he steps back on the field. But Utah, even with Davis, I think they can give them a run for their money because you got Mitchell, you got a bunch of guys who aren't going to be afraid of LeBron, that are just going to bring it night in, night out, and see what happens. But for them, who knows where this is going? Fans are pouring into more and more buildings, including a lot of them in the NBA. Maybe by the end of the year, you can get, 40% capacity in Utah, and Utah's got the 1 seed. Lakers are 2 or 3, and you got to come in there and play them. That's not going to be an easy task. And, with that fan base as loud as it is and the history in there, maybe that can have a slight difference on, LeBron's game or some of those bench players where, an empty building in Utah. What's different about that than, being in an empty building at Staples in LA? Some palm trees and a little bit warmer weather. But other than that, you're doing the same thing. So I credit the Utah Jazz. I think they were my sleeper team before the year to really do well. I didn't think they'd obviously be doing this well. I thought they'd finish top 3 or 4 in the Western Conference. But they've really showed people what they have in the tank and their heart as players. I think Gobert took a lot of heat for COVID and touching the mics and all that. He's come back this year, played great. Donovan Mitchell and him seem to be close after There was rumors that maybe Donovan wouldn't want to play with him anymore. I think those have been put to bed here, and good on Utah for being a quote unquote small market team, developing a great team, not having to go out and acquire a super skilled player, and they're building a winning campaign there under Quinn Snyder, where he's he's the favorite for Coach of the Year right now, and we'll see what they got to bring in the future here. But I like where they're trending, and yeah, I like what they have to offer in Utah. I think they're a fantastic team. Um, I'll close out the podcast today, starting with the Genesis Open. Again, the golf tournament. It's good. The NFL's gone. I'm glad. Yeah, I'm not happy about that, but I am glad that we have golf. Yeah, it's a good little replacement for me. You get some golf going. Get the Genesis this weekend with some great players. Again, I mentioned Dustin Johnson, Justin Thomas, Colin Morikawa. I mean, you got major champions galore in this tournament, in this field. It's gonna be must-watch golf, especially you get to Saturday and Sunday. You look at the leaderboard and you're like, okay, who's gonna go 6 under today and really take control? We've seen the past couple weekends that Jordan Spieth be really in contention. I don't expect him to be in contention this week. There's too good of a field. He's playing good golf, but with that driver as bad as it is right now, I don't see him making a huge impact in this tournament. But this is a big, again, it gets people out. It's Riviera. It's a good course. It's a big tournament, and it's exciting to see it. We got the Masters in a little over a month. We got the Players before that, and for me, every weekend is just a new opportunity, and I like what I'm seeing in the PGA Tour right now. You got a lot of guys with personality. You got guys like Koepka. You got DeChambeau, who's this completely new freak when it comes to lifting weights and being a mad scientist. But golf's done a better job at promoting their players. You still have Tiger Woods when you need him, and that's obviously going to sell. But I do think they have enough characters. You still have your Rory McIlroys. You still have your Dustin Johnsons, but you have your characters when you need them to sell, that they will. And so I like the direction of golf in a marketing sense, but also the product is so fantastic right now. You got Dustin Johnson, who just last summer just looked like he couldn't lose, and obviously he wins the Masters. He was superhuman last summer the way he was playing golf. Justin Thomas, he's a favorite to win every tournament. He comes in, does the same thing. He's so consistent. The first day he's normally going to be 5-6 under and have a good chance of making a dent and obviously play into the weekend. But yeah, the Genesis this weekend, I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, we get tennis finals, we get hockey all weekend, a couple outdoor games, UFC Saturday night with Derek Lewis headlining against Curtis Blades. So a lot happening in the world of sports. Carson Wentz, as of right now, is still a Philadelphia Eagle. Deshaun Watson is still a Houston Texan, but there's new rumors every day. So I'll keep you guys all up to date on that. Something that was announced yesterday that I might try to do here on the podcast, and you can let me know in the comments if you're interested in it. I might cover Big Brother Canada. It starts March 3rd. I'm a big competition fan, so I've watched every season of Survivor. I've seen every season of US Big Brother and Canadian Big Brother. I like social strategy, that sort of stuff. I'm a big chess guy, so I see those games as the ultimate game of human chess, so to speak. So is that something you'd be interested in, just let me know in the comments. I'd like to get a co-host for the show, so if there's any fans out there that really love Big Brother Canada, let me know, and I'd love to partner with you for the show. We could do 1 or 2 podcasts a week, figure out a schedule that works for both of us, and cover the new cast of characters that enter the BB Can House on March 3rd. But yeah, a podcast coming tomorrow morning. I'm doing an interview with Craig tomorrow night on Under Review. Should be back Saturday morning with another fresh pod on the results of the tennis and everything that's happening. But everybody enjoy your Thursday. Thank you so much for the support and listening and following me so far. This is episode 60. So it's great to have gotten here at this point. But everybody have a great day. Take care, and we'll talk soon.